Hello and welcome to Joe Marquis Wagers. I am Joe Marquis. Today is Tuesday, November 14th, 2023. This video is coming out a lot later than normal. We just had a very busy day today and I'm just now getting to it. We are going to talk a little bit about each of the games from Week 10, including the wagers I made. I went 18 and 13 in Week 10, which is a 58% winning percentage. My overall percentage since I started doing this is now at 54%, so not bad. On the Thursday night game, we saw the Bears defeat the Patriots 16-13 in Chicago. I had 7 wagers in this one, and I went 4-2 with the push. Cole Kmet hit both of his receiving props as he had 5 receptions for 45 yards, and that is the third game in a row he has hit his props with Bagent as his starting QB. Now, it sounds like Fields is going to play in their next game, so I'm probably not going to play this one next week. I'm going to want to wait and see if his production continues with Fields at QB. I kind of felt like this was just a connection thing with Bagent, him being such a young QB, and he just using Kmet as like a security blanket. So I'll need to see that same production with Fields before I play it moving forward. Now, Foreman had a great day running the ball and exceeded his rushing prop by over 20 yards. Bryce Young also hit his rushing prop, and he hit his in the first quarter. So this is the third week in a row Bryce has hit his rushing prop. So if it stays low, man, I'm going to keep playing this one. This is kind of a sneaky little thing here. I mean, it was set at 9.5, and he doubled that up. And in fact, he's had, I want to say, at least 20 yards for the last 3 games in a row. I missed on the Bears team total and the Kmet anytime touchdown, and then I pushed on the spread. We took the Bears -3, and they won by exactly 3. We also missed an opportunity here, as this was another primetime under. I kind of discovered that 23-7 primetime under thing before Monday night. So we missed it here, and as you'll hear later, we missed it on Sunday night as well. The game total opened at 39.5, and only 29 points were scored. So big miss there on our part. Next week, the Bears will be at the Lions. Oh my! The Panthers will play host to the Dallas Cowboys. The last international game was a bit of a snooze fest, as both teams combined for only 16 points. We didn't take the game under on this one, but we did take the Patriots under their team total of 20.5. I didn't feel too comfortable with the game under, just because sometimes the Colts can put up a lot of points. So I just went with the one I knew wasn't going to score, which was the Patriots. And this one was never close. They scored 6 total points. We also won the side as the Colts covered the 1.5 point spread as they won by 4. We missed on the Hunter Henry receiving yards prop by less than 10 yards, and we missed on the Stevenson's reception prop by just 1. They were both close, but there just wasn't a lot of offense in this game for either team. The only really interesting thing to come out of this game was that Mac Jones was benched for Zappi on the Patriots' final drive. So now we just need to wait and see who starts at QB in the following week. I think they're on a bye, so we'll have a little bit extra time. But the best part is going to be when the reporters ask Belichick who's going to be the starting QB, and he has to mumble his response. The Colts will also be on a bye in Week 11. In one of the more surprising outcomes over the weekend, the Texans defeated the Bengals on a last-second field goal in Cincinnati. So now the question becomes, were the Bengals looking past the Texans at their Thursday night matchup with division rival Baltimore, or have the Texans turned a corner and become legitimate playoff contenders? Maybe a little of both. And this one was a loss for me. I had the Bengals covering the 6.5 point spread at home. This is only the second win on the road for the Texans this year, and they had lost their previous 2 badly. I see a lot of similarities, though, between Stroud and Burrow. They're both cool and calm in the pocket, and late in games, they make the plays necessary to put their teams in a position to win. I mean, Burrow even did that in this game. I mean, he marched him down the field and threw a perfect ball to Boyd in the end zone, and he just dropped it. And they had to settle for the tying field goal. And this game could have played out a lot differently if Boyd was able to hang on to that and they were to go up by a touchdown. That would have forced, or gone up by 4, it would have forced the Texans to have to go for a touchdown instead of just the game-winning field goal. The other thing I wonder at this point is whether the Panthers are quietly wondering if they made the right choice with their number 1 pick. Stroud looks legit. The Vikings beat the Saints at home 27-19. Now, I only watched this one on the red zone, so I didn't get to actually focus on it a lot, but I hardly saw Taysom on the field at all for any of the plays I did see. And needless to say, he did not hit his prop of 23.5 rushing yards. I think he only had 6. So if anyone watched this game, I would love to know what happened with this one. Was Taysom injured? Was there some other reason he wasn't in the game much? It was disappointing because he has been very effective in the last 2 or 3 games. So, I mean, if he wasn't injured, then that's just a coaching mistake not getting him in the game. This is 5 wins in a row for the Vikings. I don't know if anybody realizes that, but 5 wins in a row, and I'm pretty sure Justin Jefferson has not been there for this whole win streak. So the interesting thing about this, too, is before Cousins' injury, it was already undetermined if the Vikings would be bringing him back next year. He's very expensive. But if Dobbs continues to play as well as he has, it might make the Vikings' decision a little bit easier. So now the Vikings will be putting their 5-game win streak on the line against the Broncos and their 3-game win streak in Week 11 on Sunday Night Football. A few weeks ago, that would have been a game with very little interest, but my, how things have changed. I also discovered that the Saints have yet to beat a team with a winning record. Man, I wish I had read that last week and not this week. Might have played things a little bit differently. The Saints will be on their bye in Week 11, and it sounds like it's going to be much needed since Carr left this game with an injury and didn't return. The Steelers defeated the Packers 23-19 and covered the alternate spread of 2.5 that I played on this one. T.J. Watt also had his sack, so I went 2-0. The Steelers are interesting. This is another game they won, even though the other team outgained them by over 100 yards. They just keep finding a way to win. I'm just not sure how sustainable it is. The Steelers are set to play the Browns in Cleveland in Week 11 in just a critical division matchup. The Packers will be back at home with the Chargers coming to town. Now, I lean towards the Chargers in that one, as I just don't see how the Packers can score enough points to keep up with that Chargers high-octane offense. The Buccaneers defeated the Titans at home 20-6, and man, I think I may have overvalued Levis after that 4-touchdown game in his first start. He's lost his next 2 starts, and this one was never close. We will need to kind of reevaluate him, I think, going forward. I only went 1-2 on this game. Hopkins only had 3 receptions, and Rachaad White only had 2 receptions. The only wager I hit was Rashad's receiving yardage. He ended up with 47 receiving yards on his 2 receptions. The Titans will be on the road next week in Jacksonville against a good team that just got smoked by the Niners. Guess which way I'm leaning. The Bucs will be traveling to Northern California to take on those same Niners. Yeah, guess which way I'm leaning there. The Cardinals defeated the Falcons at home in Kyler's season debut. He looked pretty good considering he hadn't played in a year. He had 33 rushing yards and looked just as fast as ever. And I went 3-0 on this game. I had the Cardinals covering the +2, and they managed to win outright. I also had both starting running backs exceeding their rushing props, and Bijan topped his prop by 40 yards, and James Conner topped his by 20 yards. So this was a very good game for me. The Cardinals traveled to Houston to take on the Texans in a suddenly interesting game. Now, before Kyler's return, this would have been a no-brainer, and I'd have said the Texans win this one easily. But now I might have to think about it. When Kyler's playing well, it changes things. He's like a wild card. The Falcons will be on their bye in Week 11, and it'll be interesting to see which of their below-average QBs get the start in Week 12. Now, the Cowboys destroyed the Giants at home 49-17. I only had one wager on this game, but it was my most profitable. I had the Cowboys exceeding their team total of 27 points. They actually hit this in the first half. I was so confident in this one that I could have lost all my other wagers on Sunday and still came out ahead as long as this one hit. That's how sure I was of this one being a blowout. The Cowboys at home against average to below average teams is going to continue to be a play I make going forward. The Cowboys will be huge favorites as they travel to Carolina to take on the Panthers in Week 11, and the Giants will again be huge underdogs this week as they travel to our nation's capital to take on the Commanders. The Lions defeated the Chargers in LA 41-38 in an exciting back-and-forth game. I, however, did not fare so well in this one. I went 0-2. I had Laporta hitting both of his reception props in this one. We needed 4.5 receptions and 50.5 yards. He ended up with 4 receptions and 40 yards. So, I mean, it was close, but, close just doesn't pay. As well as the Lions have been playing, they only have a 1.5 game lead in their division because of the Vikings' 5-game winning streak. Something I think we've all lost a little sight of. I think the Lions have been playing so well, people just have taken it as a given that they're going to win the division. I still think they're the favorites, and if I was going to put a wager on it, that's still who I would put a wager on. But the Vikings might make it interesting at this point if they can keep that winning streak alive. The Lions will face the Bears in Detroit next week. The Chargers. The Chargers are now under 500 and in third place in the AFC West, behind the defending Super Bowl champion, Kansas City Chiefs, and the Raiders. The team that just fired its coach. Man, the Chargers have way too much talent to be 4-5. They will be traveling to Green Bay in Week 11 for a very winnable matchup against the Packers. My Seahawks. They managed to defeat the Commanders on a last-second field goal, but did not cover the spread of 6.5. Of course, I'll take the win. Wins are hard to come by in the NFL. And I did manage to win the prop bet of Boye Mafe to record a sack in the game. Seattle will be in LA next week to take on the Rams following the Rams' bye week. A big factor in this game for me is going to be the health of Rams QB Matthew Stafford. If he plays, it's going to be a lot more challenging. If Carson Wentz plays, I'm definitely playing the Hawks at that point. The Commanders, well, they basically have a bye week in Week 11 as they get to play the Giants at home. The Raiders defeated the Jets 16-12. This was another primetime under we missed out on. Eventually an over is going to hit. Luckily, I did hit both of my wagers on this one. The Raiders not only covered the 1.5, but they won outright. I almost played them on the money line, which obviously would have been a much better payout. I also nailed the Josh Jacobs rush attempt prop. This is going to be one to keep an eye on going forward as well. As long as we don't expect their game script to be one of playing from behind, I think they will continue to hit. Just maybe not in Week 11, since they're going to be traveling to Miami to take on the Dolphins. I have a feeling they're going to be playing a little catch-up in that one, and so I'm probably not going to play the rushing props in that one. Maybe the O'Donnell pass attempts would be the way to go in that one. The Jets will be in Buffalo next week. All right, last night's game. The Broncos defeated the Bills on a last-second field goal in Buffalo on Monday Night Football. Final score was 24-22. It was close, but the under still hit. I'm glad we played that one. We also hit on the Russell Wilson rushing prop. That's, I want to say, 4 in a row where Wilson has hit his rushing prop. So it's definitely going to be one to keep an eye on. He just, he's doing a much better job of when it ain't there, he's just taking what he can get. Unfortunately, none of the Shakir props hit. He only had 1 reception for 24 yards. Man, the Bills, they just didn't look right last night. They had 4 turnovers on the night, and that might not have even been, those might not have been the worst mistake. The worst mistake was probably having 12 men on the field during the Broncos' game-winning field goal attempt. If it wasn't for that penalty, the Bills would have won the game. The first field goal attempt was wide right. Buffalo is a talented team, but they have some issues right now. The Bills play the New York Jets in Week 11 at home, and both those teams are struggling right now. So, whoever wins that game is going to be sitting a lot prettier with at least a chance at the playoffs. But, man, I think whoever loses that game, they might just be done. The Broncos will be at home to face those red-hot Vikings. Now, if you watched my video on Saturday, you know there are 2 games that I just passed on. That was the Browns at Ravens and Niners at Jags. And sometimes I think the best wager you can make is to not make a wager at all. I was leaning towards the Ravens. They'd been hot, but I thought it was just too many points for a divisional matchup. And, during the game, it was like, I should have played the Ravens. And then, lo and behold, back came the Browns, and they won it at the end. And then in the Jags 49ers, I thought I didn't want to make a wager because I felt like there were just too many unknowns with, the 49ers getting people back. And so I didn't make a wager, and I'm glad I didn't, because if I had, I would have played the Jags at home catching points. But, man, the 49ers look like they're back. It wasn't even close. So, apparently having your Hall of Fame left tackle and an all-pro wide receiver make a big difference with a young QB. Who knew? All right. My next video will be on Thursday to break down the Bengals and Ravens game. This is going to be a tough one, as both teams are coming off disappointing losses at home on last-second field goals. If you haven't already, please subscribe and share on social media or with friends and family who may have an interest in wagering on football. Some of the prop information could be helpful to anyone who plays fantasy football as well. So I will see you guys on Thursday. Thanks for watching.